Welcome to day 75 of 66 and 26. It's Friday, and we're beginning a new book of the Bible today. Now, on Fridays, you might expect that we would be in one of the Gospels, which we have been over the last 10 or 11 weeks, but we're in the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament today. And why is that? Well, we did that for a couple of reasons. First, if you break up all the books of the Bible and the chapters in each kind of section of the Bible, you'll notice that there's a great disparity in the number of chapters in the prophets in the Old Testament versus the number of chapters in the Gospels in the New Testament. There are many more chapters in the prophets than there are in the Gospels. And so in order to even that out, we moved one of the prophets into the column of the Gospels on Fridays. And Isaiah is a natural choice for that because the ministry of Isaiah and the preaching of Isaiah, the writing of Isaiah, so clearly depicts the ministry of the Messiah, the Christ, that Isaiah has often been referred to as the fifth gospel. And so we naturally were able to move from the Old Testament prophets column into the New Testament Gospels column, the book of Isaiah. So over the next couple months, we'll actually be in the prophet Isaiah on Fridays. Now, a little bit of background for the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah, we'll find out next week, began his ministry the year that King Uzziah died in Judah. So that was in 740 BC. And Isaiah's ministry will span the kingships of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, the kings of Judah. Now, at the time when Isaiah began his ministry in 740 BC, there were two kingdoms, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. That was God's chosen people. They had been one nation before, but they split after King Solomon, and it was Israel in the north, Judah in the south. In 722 BC, the kingdom in the north, Israel, was defeated and taken away into exile by the Assyrians to the north. And so after 722, less than 20 years after Isaiah began his prophetic ministry, there was only Judah left. And we'll see that all the enemies of Israel, the Assyrians and later the Babylonians, are pressing hard against Judah and against the capital city, Jerusalem. That becomes a crisis moment in the history of Judah, which Isaiah speaks into early in his ministry. We'll see that in the upcoming chapters. But Isaiah is not just seeing what is going on in his lifetime and describing the ministry of the prophecy that he brings from God during his lifetime, but he's also seeing well into the future and predicting events. And oftentimes the ministry of Isaiah is described like mountain peaks. If you were to look at mountain peaks from off to the side, you would see a peak here, peak here, peak here. But if you were to take those mountain peaks and then you could turn and see those from head on, you would notice that those peaks don't look like they're so far apart anymore. And the ministry of Isaiah actually condenses a lot of those peaks. And so instead of being spread out, we see them up close. You'll see Isaiah move very quickly between speaking about something that's going on in his present day and something that's going on in the future when the kingdom of Judah is taken away into exile by Babylon. And then when 70 years later, that kingdom of Judah returns from exile and there's a remnant to rebuild Jerusalem and the kingdom of Judah. And then you'll see to the time of Christ and even further into the last days, the end times and the resurrection day, judgment day. And Isaiah sees all those things in the course of his ministry, and he condenses them together into one prophecy. And we see that actually in the first three chapters, which we're reading today, Isaiah 1, 2, and 3. There's this quick moving back and forth between judgment and the wrath of God coming on people for their unfaithfulness, and moving very quickly then to the rejoicing and the celebration that comes because of God's grace and restoration. And between chapter 1, where God is accusing his people of unfaithfulness, and chapter 2, where Isaiah is seeing all the way to the very end day and the restoration of all of creation, we're seeing this very quick back and forth. And you'll see this throughout Isaiah. I hope that you will enjoy this journey with me through the prophet Isaiah, or the Gospel of Isaiah, however you want to think about it, as we go over these next several weeks through this amazing prophet, the beautiful prophecy of Isaiah.